The Detroit Lions select Panay Sewell. Levi Onzarike. Aline McNeil.
Aline McNeil got it.
Honor of Sam Brown. Derek Barnes.
Derek Barnes got it.
With the second pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Aiden Hutchinson.
Looks, pressure comes, blitz, hit, sack, Aiden Hutchinson, that's number 2. Josh Pascal got it.
Kobe Joseph.
Intercepted by the Lions. James Houston got it. Malcolm Rodriguez got it. The man wide open. End zone, touchdown Lions.
This is Detroit Lions Live, coming to you from the 2023 NFL Draft right here in Kansas City. I'm your host, Dannie Rogers. No NFL team has more draft picks in the top 100 than the Detroit Lions. 5 alone in the top 81, and that includes number 6 and number 18 overall. General Manager Brad Holmes will add 2 new Lions to the pride here tonight, barring any trades. And we will hear from Holmes and head coach Dan Campbell coming up soon here in the show, but we've got to have a little bit of fun here to start off. Here is your trivia question for the night. We will reveal the answer later in the show, and I can tell you this trivia question, the answer has a very special place in my heart. Question is, who is the last player Detroit selected number 6 overall in the draft? All right, put your thinking caps on. It was a minute ago. If my math is correct, it was over 3 decades ago. Whew, that is a long time. 3 long days are ahead of General Manager Brad Holmes, who enters his 3rd draft with Detroit with some lessons learned and an impressive amount of draft capital. Brad, I don't know if you check social media, YouTube comments. I typically tell people don't look at the comments, but you have a lot of fans here in Detroit, a lot that'll be at the draft party and watching this show. What is your message to Detroit ahead of the 2023 draft?
Look, just, we're always going to find the right players to fit our culture. Me and Dan, we're working really, really hard, and we're going to continue to build this the right way. But whoever we add, we'll make sure that one pride is proud. We'll guarantee that we do it for y'all. And you guys are a rowdy, gritty group just like we are. So we're going to get the right player that you guys are going to be proud of.
Last year we talked about your routine for draft and how it kind of was a little more laid back. You said you start with meditation. Yeah. I know these fans are on their heels, excitement. Can you take us through a little meditation with the general manager of the Detroit Lions and how you prep for draft day?
Yeah, I was telling a story about the year 1 where I just showed up too early, and I had no work-life balance. Like I was just a mess year 1. But I was so kind of nervous first draft and showed up early and calling all these other GMs, and they're all taking walks with their wives and shooting hoops, and like what? And so I learned my lesson that you got to kind of give yourself some time, because they're emotionally draining days, and you want to be as sharp as possible. So, like my normal morning routine when, like waking up and, meditation and exercise and, gratitude sessions and all that kind of stuff, and spending time with my family. What I'm probably going to add this year is taking my kids to school this time. I didn't do that last year, but this year, I'll probably take the kids to school, drop them off, and then come back and, do those other stuff.
You mentioned unique and different when describing this year's draft.
Yeah.
Over 2 decades of drafts for you.
Yeah.
What stands out to you right now about it?
The capital we have and the flexibility that we have in terms of, like when you have a lot of picks and you have a lot of things that you're trying to fill and need, it's a little bit easier. But when it's like you can go so many different directions, you can go any direction, you can do anything you really want, and you have that capital and in some unique spots where you're sitting at 6 and you're like, all right, how many quarterbacks are going to go? You don't know. So, trying to do all those different scenarios, and you're looking at 18, and do you go back, do you go up, do you stay? So not a bad different, it's different.
How intertwined then are 6 and 18, those picks, with how close they are?
even from those spots, you have flexibility when you run through the scenarios about, staying or leaving, at both of those spots. But you talk about kind of moving around in the draft, that's easy to say, but you got to have a partner. So you got to kind of, go through those exercises as well. So sometimes you can move, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you don't want to move. Sometimes you're just praying, like, in the past, where we're just like, please make sure he falls there. So, but that's what makes it all exciting.
Last year, you jumped up 20 spots. What did you learn about yourself as a general manager when you made that scenario happen?
I've always felt that I was aggressive and competitive, and if there's somebody that I really think is a special player and that I really covet, I won't hold back at all in terms of doing what we got to do to make sure that we can go up and get that player. If me and Dan are aligned on it, just like we were on Jameson, then we're just going to go up and get him, and we're just not going to sit back and wait. And I think that's one of the things about, you just always have to stay aggressive in a sense, not only in the draft but in this league, just because you start getting comfortable and you're saying, well, we really like this player, but, we'll see what happens, yada, yada, man. That's when you start getting complacent. And, if you start taking your foot off the gas, when you feel like you're getting to a certain point, that's usually when you get your ass whipped. So that's, you just got to kind of keep the foot on the gas and stay aggressive and, try to get the best player for us.
4 picks in the first 2 rounds, 5 in the first 81, which is a league high. What is your expectations for that impact timeline of those first and second rounders?
We've had a lot of rookies make strong contributions in the past. Now, as we all know, when me and Dan first started, the roster was down to the studs there. So it was a lot of opportunities for a lot of rookies to play early. Now, you still got to pick the right guys because they have to have the ability, they have to have the mental, they have to have the intangibles, they have to have all those things to earn the coach's trust to play week in and week out. And so we acquired the right players, but they had ops. Now, this year, look, there's a chance that we can acquire a player in the top 2 rounds that he may not contribute, as early. We're not picking off a depth chart. We're not picking to say right now. These are long-term investments. So, and if you're looking at it from that view, then you're comfortable with it. And but you want to get that rookie that kind of makes an impact, and it's great. But you got to understand that it might not happen like that all the time.
You start looking at these prospects dating back to last summer at least. Then you go through the combine, top 30 visits. At what point do players start growing on you and start making it onto your board?
Probably earlier than it should. Honestly, I'll be honest. I'm quicker for a player to grow on me early on in the process, almost just as much. A player can grow off of me through the process as well. Maybe it was early in the college football season and, I was like, man, I kind of like some of the things that he did. And then you look back at it and then you look at some late stuff and it was like, it's not quite what I thought I saw the first time. And I always say scouting is an art and the evaluation process is artwork. And I've always respected that if you can get 10 people in a dark room looking at the same exact film, you turn those lights on, you got 10 different opinions. And so that's what I ultimately refer to as kind of going through an art gallery. And everybody's looking at the same artwork, but they're seeing different things. So, I just have a lot of respect for the psychology of the process and knowing those things and being aware of it. And when it happens and it changes where, I kind of moved off a player or a player kind of grew on me late, you just got to understand the human element part.
Coach Campbell keeps mentioning swinging with the big boys this past offseason. He said it in a couple of interviews. That's what this team can do here in this upcoming season. Yeah. How much does that boost your confidence when you're drafting these prospects?
Yeah, it doesn't change our process at all, but, I feel really good about kind of where we are at as a team right now. Still keeping in mind, we still got work to do. And, you just never want to get complacent. If anything, knowing that, we can swing with the big boys and knowing that our fan base believes that, really happy for them, just kind of being proud of our team and, being a team that they can truly root for and feel good about. But at the same time, I just don't think it's ever good enough. I just don't I don't care how much we add, how much of drafts we stack on top, how much free agency we stack. It's never going to be good enough because, again, if you let your foot off the gas, that's when you'll get your ass whooped. And so we'll just stay aggressive. But it does feel good, though.
Hey, what's going on, Detroit? This is your very own fullback, Jason Cabinda, and
Charles Harris, outside linebacker.
And we're here on the streets of Kansas City to talk to people, ask them about who they think their favorite teams are going to pick in this year's draft.
This is a special day for fans and for players. Now, they're going to find out where they're going to be for the start of their careers. It's taking place today, baby. Stay tuned. How y'all doing? I am here with the beautiful
Alicia King,
Alicia. Where are we right now?
Kansas City, Missouri, Crown Center.
Let's start here. Who has the number one pick in the draft right now?
Carolina Panthers.
Okay. He's on it. He's on it. Who has the first pick in the NFL draft this year?
Well, I asked if it happened every year, so I'm not sure.
Who's going number one overall?
Bryce Young?
Really?
Yeah, I like him.
Who was first picked last year in NFL draft?
That's a good question. Who was first pick last year? Wait, who had the first pick last year? Can you tell me that?
I'm not helping you.
You can't give me the team?
Absolutely not. We'll come back to that one, y'all.
I'm here with Steve. I'm here with Laura from Pittsburgh. Laura, and Steve, you're from?
Kansas City.
From Kansas City, okay. Who do you guys think the Lions should draft?
Either a quarterback to kind of do an understudy with Goff or defense. I'd like to see him take Jalen Carter, but I don't know if he's going to be there at 9.
Ooh, I'd agree with that one.
No,
They got 6 and 18.
You got 6. I thought you had 9. Yeah. 6, Carter might be there.
I don't know the names, but I would want them to pick someone that is just like you, doing charity work, kind, generous,
My heart right now.
very into their city. Someone that's an awesome person overall.
What do you know about the Detroit Lions? Who do you think the Detroit Lions should select?
I know Eminem's from there.
I started watching football, I want to say in like middle school is when I got into it with my family. It's a big Chiefs family. If you don't like the Chiefs, you can't watch at our house.
Wow. I ain't going there.
No, you can't.
Give me 3 restaurants that are local to Kansas City that you feel are near and dear that people need to know about.
Oh, man. Gates Barbecue.
Gates, okay.
All right. Something relatively new. Soiree.
Not a lot of people know about 54th Street.
54th Street Grill.
I hear so much about Kansas City barbecue. Where do I need to go eat?
Q39.
Okay.
No, Gates, hand down Gates. Not Gates. What is Arthur Bryant's?
Arthur Bryant is on the east side of town, and it's where all the celebrities go when they come here.
Oh, yeah, but we want the old school. We want the finger licking good. We want I can eat, and I don't got to worry about what I look like. That's what I need.
That's where it's a grease pit. It's old school.
Old school.
Well, I'm about to go to Detroit actually for Movement Festival.
What are you about to do in Detroit?
Movement.
What is that?
It's a techno festival over at Hart Plaza.
Next year, the 2024 draft is going to be in Detroit, Michigan, home of automation. Are you going to come down?
Absolutely.
It's so much going on in Detroit right now. Like, it's a beautiful city.
You're going to tour. We're going to tour guide?
We can make it happen now. We can make it happen.
Why you just so Lions? If you from here, you grew up in this town. You got to stay with us.
Fun fact. You ready?
You was born in?
And I'm born here. Fun
Okay.
fact. You ready?
Yeah.
I play for the Lions.
Do you? Oh.
His outfit is amazing, and he looks like Michael Strahan.
Hopefully, one day I'll be doing this job even better than Michael Strahan. And I look better.
Yeah.
And my gas better.
I'm a Detroiter, born and raised. We're tough, we're strong, we're resilient. In the D, we carry this team on our shoulders.
Detroit is a football town, we're a football city, and we stand behind you all the way. We love you and we're not going nowhere. And I am so excited because we're coming. It's coming.
Yes! Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Welcome back to Kansas City ahead of the 2023 NFL Draft. General Manager Brad Holmes, along with head coach Dan Campbell, were able to find some playmakers in the later rounds in last year's draft. That includes 6th rounder Malcolm Rodriguez and the 7th rounder James Houston, who both went on to produce in their rookie seasons. I spoke with the head coach about why they're able to find this talent that other teams aren't, plus his message for Detroit ahead of this draft.
Coach, the fans at Ford Field, they're checking in on the draft. They're excited to see who the Lions are going to welcome in to the tribe. What is your message to Lions fans ahead of the 2023 draft?
Look, I mean, I think the excitement is valid, right? Enjoy this time as we all do. It's a chance to improve our team, right? Bring in players that make this city proud and are going to help us win on Sundays.
Mock simulations, we have to talk about what that looks like for you. We're all doing it in the office here. It gets me fired up. What do the actual mock simulations look like for you and Brad?
Yeah, probably very similar to what everybody else is doing, honestly. I mean, I would say it's a little more advanced. Analytics is involved, team needs are involved, our own data is involved, and you build these mock drafts and you let them play through, and you start picking, you start changing the scenarios. All right, let's let it play through naturally. Let's throw a curveball. Let's say, Chicago picks this player or vice versa, and then you see where you're at. And I think ultimately it's no different than, I've said this to Brad, it's what I do all game day, or my coaches. You put yourself in every situation before you get there so that you know how to respond once it does. So how many of those can you do? How many different scenarios can you put yourself into situations to where you have the answer immediately when it comes, so that you're not scrambling, right? So it's fun, really. It's fun. And look, it's why Brad does what he does, right? I mean, he's under the clock and he's got a lot going on, but he's a rock star at it too.
Mm-hmm. After you drafted Aiden Hutchinson 2nd overall last year, you kept saying conviction afterwards. At what point in this draft process do you start to have conviction on players?
I think the conviction is there now. I think you get it pretty quick. I think that's not true. I would say there's a number of players you feel like you can get pretty quick, all right? And everything starts on the film, on the tape, the way the guy plays, and then you just want to validate everything else, what is the person, the character, the football character, all those things. But I'd say, man, once you're, in some cases, once you're a month, 3 weeks, 2 weeks out, man, you've got conviction on guys that are they fit that criteria. They're about what you're about.
Last year, Detroit found the Rodrigos in this draft, the Josh Pascals, Kirby Josephs, the James Houstons, that came in the later rounds, most of them, that other teams might not have had their eyes on. What is Brad seeing in these prospects that other teams just can't?
Well, look, there again, you said it. It all starts with Brad. Brad's got a unique ability. Look, it's one of the reasons he's sitting in the seat he's sitting in, and that's a credit to Sheila and Rod, Chris Spillman, those guys, Disner, finding him, the diamond in the rough, right? He's got a unique ability to find talent at all levels, and not only that, to really deep dive the intangibles too, and that's what among other things, I really appreciate about Brad is, we see players very much alike. Like he is very true to, he doesn't chase things. It's either there or it's not. And a lot of people can get lost in oh my God, look at this guy, just the vertical speed, right? It's just speed, but there's nothing else there. But you get so enamored with one of these traits, back up. He can back up and look at the whole picture, and he's been really good at it. And the proof's in the pudding. We're 2 years in, and he's found them, right? But it's also a credit to Rhea Agnew and Dorsey and Lance Newmark, right, and Mike and all those guys that are in there. Also with the area scouts, and I tell you what, these guys grind. They grind. It's the best group I've been around, top to bottom, as far as putting in the work. It's open dialogue. There's conversation, there's debate, and you come up with the best answer to find the best guy.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine the standards you set for yourself while you're going through this draft process. As a young tight end, do you sometimes have to pump back the brakes and not set the expectations so dang high for these prospects when they come in?
Yeah, you do. I mean, I think, yes. Everybody, the easy answer, you always want these guys to just come in and, man, they're just going to ball right when they walk in the door. And that's just not the reality. And I think that's part of the evaluation as well is, look, for example, Sewell and Hutch, right, are two early first-round picks. Man, the talent was there. You could see it. But I think the other allure about it was you knew that they would get beat and learn from it. And the things that they would get beat on, they would not get beat on again, and because they are highly competitive, they're driven. And so I think being wired a certain way to where, you can have these guys have this talent and they get beat, and man, their confidence just dips. Whereas you find the guys that have talent, when they get beat, man, they're coming back for more. I'm gonna learn from that, and that's a special trait. And you'd like to believe all players have that. They don't. And that's kind of part of the secret is to find those guys at every level.
Did you find that before they were drafted or after they were drafted?
No, I think we were pretty convicted they had it before they were drafted. I'm not going to tell you why, because I don't want everybody else to know that. But we love our process and what we do. And look, we're not going to be 100%. Nobody's 100%. But the key is that, man, you're going to hit on a lot more than you're certainly going to miss on. And but you do the best you can with it, and you stay true to what you believe. And I just think more times than not, we're going to be right on.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever let yourself take in the fact that you're changing these young players' lives when they get to Detroit?
Yeah, you do. And, that certainly comes into account. And I will say this, man, the guys that it's very fulfilling when you know that you've changed somebody's life and how appreciative they are for that, because it means that much to them. That's a pretty cool thing. But no, we don't take that lightly. And you are, man. Their livelihood is changing. Everything about what they think is normal is about to be, it's about to be flipped upside down for them. And that's another thing. How do they handle that? Can they handle it? So it's all part of it.
I'm a Detroiter, born and raised. We're tough, we're strong, we're resilient.
Touchdown!
In the D, we carry this team on our shoulders.
Detroit is a football town, we're a football city, and we stand behind you all the way. We love you and we're not going nowhere. And I am so excited because we're coming. It's coming.
Yes! Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Will Detroit stay at number 6 overall, or will they trade up? Will they keep that 18th overall pick or use it to add more draft capital? With a lot of capital comes a lot of flexibility. I spoke with the national analysts here on the ground in Kansas City to see what they've been hearing about these Detroit Lions in the draft.
In 2 years, we've gone from Dan Campbell to press conference that we all kept on the loop because we thought it was funny.
We're going to bite a kneecap off, and on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap.
To a team that we are all looking at like, God, they're going to be a playoff team this year.
Detroit's in a great position. If I were to say before the draft, who do you expect to come out of this draft as the team that you're talking about the most, it would be Detroit.
I think they can do anything. They can see how it unfolds and react accordingly. I think if they just stick and pick at 6 and 18, they can get 2 really good football players.
In my estimation, Detroit should be the favorite in the division next year if they do well in these top 55 picks.
I think you can add some pieces of this defense to get better, especially in the back end.
Devin Witherspoon, I think he will be the top corner drafted. Devin is one of the most unique athletes in that as the pressure ratchets up or there's more talking or there's more trash talking, he said it's not just that his intensity level goes up, he said his technique actually gets better. And he was like, he's the only guy that I've been around that's the case. It's like he goes into a zone where his technique gets better, and I think that's what NFL teams are starting to recognize, is that at the biggest moments is when he played his cleanest football. And that's a really a rarity, in particular in college at cornerback. I think everything depends on what Seattle does. I don't put it past Seattle drafting a corner. which means that Detroit might end up with Christian Gonzalez. He's got elite ball skills, great lineage. His dad was actually a basketball player at UTEP. He was 6'9", and so he's just a fluid mover. It's really rare to see guys that have that length and then have the athleticism to stay with routes. Those are two actually really interesting picks to me, because both of those teams, I think, are going to have to make the decision: do we take the best corner that we like, or do we take Jalen Carter?
I think Jalen Carter would be dynamite at 5 to Seattle, dynamite at 6 to Detroit, dynamite at 9 to Chicago, dynamite at 10 to Philadelphia. Wherever you want. Heck, he'd be great in Las Vegas playing for the Raiders. He's a dominant football player. If he's there to play ball and there's no other issues, everybody should want to snap him up.
Well, I mean, as a player, he plays the way they like to play. I mean, I thought he played hard. He plays, with violence. He's aggressive. So I think from that standpoint, he would marry up really well with the other pieces they have on their defense.
Aaron Glenn on defense, Kelvin Shepard on defense. We can go right down the line. These guys fit. Guys want to play for these people. In less than 2 years, they have a culture they can handle or work with. Maybe a player might have had some bumps before. I think that's really impressive.
I think they're going to have a chance with the first 4 picks in the top 55 to get significantly better.
You need that guy to come in and be right away contributor, every day in your building working, and everyone rallying around him, because he's going to be a face for you. He may not be the face, quarterbacks usually are, but he's going to be a face, and it also signals that you know what you're doing as an organization, because you got the right guy. So you don't want to miss on all of this. Your fan base will have confidence in you if you're picking the right guys and they play right away.
I am Tim Twentyman. He is the Hall of Famer, Mike O'Hara. And we are handling things here from Allen Park while Danny's got everybody on lock there at Kansas City. Mike, it's draft day. It's one of the fun days of the year in the NFL calendar, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And, look, when we start out like in January and start looking at like my first mock draft, mock 1.0, 2.0, I think I know everything. And today I know nothing. It just seems like everything is falling apart on me.
Well, we are going to get into your mock draft. What
Thank
is this,
you.
the final edition mock 4.0?
4.0.
All right, so let's go right into it. Now, at 6, it's interesting because a lot's got to happen at the top of the draft that will affect 6. It's not like last year when they were at 2 and they kind of just had to see what happened at 1 and they had their group of guys. I think this is a really interesting draft. When you went through your mock drafts, you got to finally the 4th edition. What was the thought at number 6, and who's your guy at 6?
Well, I liked him a lot. He was my guy in mock 2.0, 3.0, and 4.0. I thought, do I really? Yeah, I do. And it's Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech. And I like everything about him. I like the way he can play both sides of the ball. He's 6'6", 270, 36-inch arms. And he can really, I think if you get him on the right side or the left side and Aiden Hutchinson on the other side, you really do have pillars of defense.
You've got bookend,
Right.
lengthy, athletic defensive ends that also can play the run, that play hard. I mean, when I look at Tyree, I see a Dan Campbell type of guy, much like I saw last year with Aiden Hutchinson. I think Tyree's maybe a little bit more athletic version of Aiden, but you look at Aiden and the production he had. Now you throw a guy on the opposite side who's very similar to him. He doesn't ever stop. Kind of that guy who just, like Aiden, plays to the whistle, plays hard, plays physical, can do both. I think if you're Brad Holmes and you walk away from the last 2 drafts with Aiden Hutchinson and Tyree Wilson, arguably the 2 best or one of 2 best pass rushers
Absolutely.
in the draft, I think, and you've got bookend guys for the next 4 or 5 years. I mean, that's a big win.
No, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. By the way, when I said pillars of defense, I think that was really clever.
All right, Mike, moving on to pick 18. That's an interesting one, too. The Lions get to double dip this year like they did last year. Who do you have at 18 in your mock?
Well, first of all, I try to have a little bit of integrity into it. In other words, not just maneuver everything so the guy I want is there.
Yeah.
And I really looked at other, as you know, you've seen me before. I look at a lot of mock drafts. I make a lot of things and make a lot of my decisions based on what I've read and what I think I know. And I got Kalea Cansey, defensive tackle, just a terrific athlete from University of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and Brad Holmes knows a little bit about undersized defensive tackles, and that's the big knock on Kalijah is 6'1", 281.
Yeah,
So undersized for that position, but much like Aaron Donald was when Brad was over with the LA Rams and they made the decision to draft him, it was all about the tape and how he lived in the offensive backfield. When I watch the tape of Calijah Kancey, I see the same thing. Half of his tackles last year, nearly half, 47% were tackles for loss. I mean, he lives in the opponent's backfield, and you can make up for some deficiencies in size if you have a lightning first step, if you're quick, if you're 100% hustle, and that's what I see with Calijah Kancey. So I'm not as much worried as the size. I'm a guy who loves tape. You know, and you look at the tape and you look at the highlights and you look at him play that much on the opposite end. Now you've got to project there'll be a little bit better, interior offensive line at the NFL level, but that first step, that burst, that plays anywhere in my opinion, and I like that pick.
And when you've got John Kaminsky and Isaiah Buggs who really like to do the dirty work, they do it inside and outside, whatever you want. I think that takes away some of the worry about it. Is he big enough? I think he's big enough, but you don't have to ask, is he fast enough? You know, not with a 4.67 40. So there are a lot of things, and we're talking about Kancey now, there are a lot of things that he has going for him that I think they outweigh whatever might be considered the negatives.
Who else did you maybe weigh there as options at 18?
You know, I will never understand why you cannot draft a running back in the top 10. I don't get it. And not just because I'm a little older than most of you here. Billy Sims, okay, remember Billy Sims? I know, I get it. I can see it, I can't hear him. It's a real handicap. But, you know, Barry Sanders, guys like that. I'd go right down the list of guys who are great football players here for the Detroit Lions. And they were drafted running backs, wide receivers, all that, drafted way below the top 10.
And I like what Brad Holmes said in his introductory press conference too. He said, look, I'm looking for playmakers. I'm looking for guys that make an impact on the field, and I don't really care what position that is. If I identify a guy, whether it's a running back or not, and he's a guy that can make plays, and if you watch Bijan Robinson's film from Texas, who I think we can both agree is the top running back in this class, 258 carries, 104 missed tackles in 258 carries. Nearly half the time he rushed the ball, he made a guy miss. He runs low to the ground. And Mike, I think what people out there have to understand too is how good of a receiver this kid is. I mean,
60 catches and yeah.
Yeah, a lot of guys are comparing him to Saquon Barkley coming out in 2018, and I think he's a better prospect because of what he gives you as a receiver. I think you can put him in the slot, not only the stuff out of the backfield. You know who I think who Bijan Robinson reminds me of? And maybe it's a little far-fetched. I think he's McCaffrey. I think he's Christian McCaffrey. I think he can have that kind of impact as both a runner and a receiver very early in his career.
I agree with you, except for one thing, a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
A little bit bigger, a little more powerful. But yeah, I think
so that's not a bad thing. That's
absolutely
a good thing.
Not. No.
All right. Some other guys maybe that could be in the mix. Let's say Tyree Wilson's out at before we get to 6, or that's not number 1 on Brad's board. Who are maybe some other guys that could be in the mix there at number 6?
Can I trade up to get Will Anderson?
I would be all for it.
Well, I'm doing it just for you.
Yeah, and I agree because you have the assets. If you're Brad
Holmes, got it.
You've got 9 picks. You've got 5 in the top 81. You've got 2 seconds, a third. You've got the draft capital if you want. If you identify that guy, and let's say it is Will Anderson at 3, and you want to go to Arizona, I mean, that's not that huge of a move, 6 to 3, and you walk away with your guy. And I think that's why you get the draft capital, right? That's why you collect it, is so you can use it, in my opinion, to go get some guys if you decide you want to move up. We saw it last year when they went from 32 to 12. They identified Jamison Williams as their guy. They went 20 spots to go get him. I wouldn't be surprised if I see it again this year.
Look, there are 8 or 9 or 8 of us here in this room right now. I guarantee you that in the next 8 years, you will not get another chance to make that kind of a move because you're not going to be drafting from the 6th position. You're not going to be able to make that move down. This is your chance to do that. This might be the only chance you get to be able to have 2 first-round draft picks, 2 second-round draft picks, and a third-round pick to have the capital to make that move. So use it when you have it.
Here's the argument by some out there that will counter and say, Mike, you won't probably be here for the next few years. You won't have this draft capital. Why don't you use number 6 to draft a quarterback? Because you're not going to be here.
Because we already have one, Jared Goff. Good enough.
I like it. And to me, it's not quarterback because if I look at the NFC North in 2023 and I see Aaron Rodgers is now gone, I see, what some of the things that the other teams have done, Minnesota and Chicago, I think that division is ripe for the picking. I think if you're the Detroit Lions, you probably enter 2023 as the favorite. To me, if you draft a quarterback at 6, you're not doing anything to help your football team in 2023. Now, that's a future pick. that you see and you hope pans out, but that doesn't help you for 2023. This regime has made it very clear that Jared Goff is their guy for 2023. So I just don't see it. I think you've got a unique opportunity, to your first point, to really help your football team at the top of the draft to get an impact guy that helps you right away. I don't think quarterback does that.
Well, two things. Number one, I think you want to buy tickets for Week 18 at Ford Field, home game in the playoffs. That's the way I'm looking at it. And number two, when you say you may not be here, I kind of take that personally.
The team may not be here. Let me clarify. All right, cornerbacks real quick. Are one of those guys maybe in the mix at 16? I think if they do a Tyree Wilson like you suggested, or go somewhere else, I think when they turn around at 18, I think that's very much a possibility. I think Joey Porter Jr. has a chance to be there. I think the Banks kid from Maryland, who's really good, has a chance to be there. I think do you think the Lions walk out of the first round with a cornerback, whether it's at 6 or 18?
I think they walk out of the first two rounds because, look, there is really depth at cornerback, and Deontay Banks is the one I was really looking at. And here's a kid, he's 6 feet tall, 193, 195, in that range. So he's big enough, 4'3" something 40. I think he's just a terrific athlete, and I think he's just coming into his game now. He started, I think, the first 8 games as a freshman, only played 7 games the next 2 years at Maryland, and then came back and played a full slate last year. I think he's just coming into his game right now.
To your point about the second round potential for cornerback, I think it's a really deep class of cornerback, so I think you can walk away from the first 2 days with a guy that can come in impact. And why we're talking about corner, people might be, Mike, they just signed Cam Sutton and
One-year
Emmanuel
contracts.
Mosley and C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Yes, the only guys under contract past this season, Cam Sutton and Jerry Jacobs. So obviously cornerback is a need, even though you like what they have going into 2023.
No, absolutely. And Tim, I think you've got to protect yourself at quarterback, because if you just look over the years, it's the most injured position on the field, because you're talking about guys who weigh 190 pounds, 195, 185, whatever, and they're taking on guys who weigh 230, 250. Sometimes a guard out there weighs 305. So it's a really, really tough, debilitating position to play, and you've got to have depth. You've got to.
Well, it should be a fun night. I think we can both agree that the Detroit Lions are going to walk away from tonight, from tomorrow, from this weekend with a lot of really good quality football players that can help them out. At least that's what we've seen the last 2 years from Brad Holmes' draft, so you got to be excited about this one too.
All right, Tim, you got me on the griddle. Who do you have at 6 and who do you have at 18?
I agree with you at 6. I think all this talk about there not being a quarterback run at the top of the draft is rubbish. I think the impact of that position is so big that I would not be surprised at all if 4 quarterbacks are taken in the top 5. I think 3 for sure, and so I think that will leave a Tyree Wilson, a Jalen Carter, a Will Anderson Jr. to kind of fall down and be in that spot. I think Tyree Wilson's the guy. And then at 18, I think this one's tough. I like the Elijah Cansey pick, but I'm going to go Joey Porter Jr. I think they're going to walk out with one of the top 3 cornerbacks. I think he's going to fall back a little bit, and I think that guy's going to be available. So if you're Brad Holmes, you're going to have one of the top pass rushers and one of the best cornerbacks. I think you walk out of the first round feeling really good about how you helped your defense.
Well, you can't argue with his size and his pedigree, because his father played 13 years in the league.
I love guys with that pedigree. So, Danny, those are our picks here from Allen Park. Who you got at 6 and 18?
Mike and Tim, thank you so much for holding down the fort there in Allen Park. And I like your picks. I think we can all agree Detroit is going to go, if they keep 6 and 18 overall, they'll go on the defensive side of the ball. Mike, I like your number 18 pick. I also agree defensive tackle Elijah Cansey out of Pitt, ACC Defensive Player of the Year, 7.5 sacks there in his last year at Pittsburgh. I think he could be great in this interior defensive line for the Detroit Lions. And then number 6 overall, neither of you guys were picking this one. Cornerback Devin Witherspoon out of Illinois. He is so aggressive. He'll come up and tackle. He has production. And I think Aaron Glenn would love to have him in his secondary. So that is my prediction for who Detroit Lions are going to take in this upcoming draft. Do I think they'll stay at 16 and 18 overall? Absolutely not. All right, we have to get to that trivia answer. I told you the answer clue is that this person has a very special place in my heart. Who was the last player Detroit drafted at 6 overall? And it is Detroit Lions' very own, the one and only Lomas Brown. 1985 is the last time Detroit Lions selected at 6 overall. And it was my BFF and my favorite co-host, no offense, Mike and Tim, LB. All right, To wrap things up, we cannot go without showing you a sneak peek of Inside the Den. If you are one of our diehard fans, you probably already watched this episode. Every time we posted content, we heard you wanted the newest episode of Inside the Den, and this gives you a great behind-the-scenes look at the process leading up to this draft. For Dannie Rogers, I'm signing off here in Kansas City, and we'll see who Detroit Lions select at number 6 overall coming up here soon.
By signing all of these incredibly capable veterans, they just have options now with those very lucrative draft picks.
The scary part about Detroit is that the card that they still have left to play might be the most valuable cards.
2 first-round draft choices, and they have made some moves. Boy, do I like them. I like them.
Brad Holmes put his team in a great position headed into the draft.
As I say all the time, I'm up here, but obviously it's just so many people that are helping out in the process. And our area scouts, they are truly the engine that make this thing go. I got a lot of respect for the work that they do, the time that they put in. They know more about these players in their area more than anybody else in this building, and they watch more tape than anybody in our building, so they're huge in our process. Wouldn't be able to do it without them.
We have the area scouts are kind of the foundation of the operation, and then we have a layer of national scouts that kind of go over the top of them, and then your kind of senior level over the top looks.
We start off in the spring, we set the list for next year. You watch all of your guys. It's good for us as a scout to know what's this team have prospect-wise.
You do a lot of your legwork in August, background, body types, just all the information. You try to get a lot of that early.
August is probably one of the most important months of the year for, I would say, scouting for the college side. That's when you get your bulk of your character information.
As an area scout, when you're doing the work on a player, it's building a house. It really is.
Once the fall starts to really roll, you can focus on the evaluations and getting the players really dialed in terms of what they are.
During the year, you're going back into those schools 2-3 times even.
So today's kind of unique where we're able to hit a practice and a game on a Saturday. Once November hits, best time of year for us Midwest scouts is action. So we'll hit practice today, get updates, watch some tape, then hit down the road down to South Bend and catch that game against Clemson, which should be a pretty good one. Usually I'll try to get up, get dressed, get ready to head up to the school. Usually pick up some donuts for the football staff there. We always view it as, hey, we're guests in their home, so we want to make sure that we're not coming empty-handed.
The relationship aspect is everything, and look, man, you better say hi to that secretary at the front door. You better bring those donuts. You have to do all that stuff to build those relationships, because those guys can tell you some things and help you out down the road.
Usually you end up meeting with the pro liaison, hit a lot of your sources like your strength coach, your trainer, position coaches, coordinators. If you're able to talk to the trainer, you get any injury updates that you might have. Get out to practice for a little bit, see how the guys are moving. Just trying to be able to contextualize the film when you're watching it. I think at the end of the day, you want to leave a school feeling comfortable that you know the football player and the person. And then most importantly, you want to know what makes them tick, how are they wired. It's ultimately trying to understand what players are going to be a best fit for us, both from a scheme standpoint as a football player, but more importantly, really from a culture standpoint in the locker room. It takes a special type of player to be a Lion, and we're extremely selective from that standpoint.
They're truly experts, and it's a lot of information, but those guys are confident. That's why they're so vital.
Usually try to watch some film before I get to the school, so have some context. It helps in my process in terms of asking pointed questions.
The workload is tremendous, and it's critically important to what we do here, and you've got to be right. You've got to be on top of it. There's deadlines that matter. If you have a family, it's really hard because you're gone a lot.
You're waking up in a different city every day, being away from a wife and our dog, just kind of wears you out after a little while. Usually this time of year, you're pretty much, you're ready to be at home. Probably one of the biggest challenges on the road is having a routine, because each day is kind of different. Sometimes practice in the morning, sometimes it's in the evening, sometimes your drive is less than an hour, sometimes it's 4 hours. So having a routine is tough.
It's hard. My first area job was in the Northeast, and I don't know anybody up there. I don't know any coaches. I don't have any sources. No one's seen my face before. That's why I tell scouts all the time, man, just keep showing up. They'll get to know you.
And when you're at those schools, you're watching film, you're talking to people. Biggest thing is you're building a book basically for your character on each player. And you're going to games as well to see your prospects live.
Being able to see players live and more exposure you get in different environments, whether it be practice, whether it be a game, being able to see, watch on the sidelines, the interactions with the coaching staff, the interactions between teammates, who's the real vocal leader on the team, just being able to, it's so critical to be able to see that in person.
Our area scouts do a great job of being knowledgeable on their schools. We rely on them tremendously in our process because that core information that our area scout provides us with is critical.
So here we go, they're starting to walk. I've always been interested in team building, evaluating players. When I was a kid playing Madden, I'm more interested in making trades and building the roster than I was playing the game. So, I mean, I remember going to watch Ricky Williams play in high school when I was first, second grade. I'd go take the bus to go watch Reggie Bush play, and then kind of followed him to SC and being able to be there with Coach Carroll. My mom, she had to, work a bunch of different jobs, so I have a chance to get a good education and kind of study what I want. And so being able to go to the school I wanted to go to be able to work in the industry I want to go to, and do exactly what I grew up always wanting to do, to evaluate football players, it's been surreal, to say the least. Muehlbach. He's probably one of 3 people here wearing shorts.
In terms of seeing the players live, you see a lot of intangible qualities beyond just seeing the guy move and see him physically.
Usually right now in stretch, I'm looking for flexibility, in terms of like their hips or ankle flexion, because that kind of tells you a lot about their ability to adjust and recover, which is critical at our level. When you're watching film in college, the hashes are a little bit wider. So when you see a quarterback push it from the far hash to the sideline and really drive it, that stands out. It's hard to get a gauge on film, like how the ball comes off the quarterback's hand. But getting down here on the field, especially if it's windy, like it's been windy today, it's nice to be able to see it in person. Getting my steps in today, fellas. Great part about coming to a game is you can really stand up close to, especially offensive linemen, defensive linemen, to see how big they are. So being able to be up at pre-game warm-ups and actually feeling how big somebody is, just in terms of like looking at their joints, looking at how dense they are. Is their body kind of sloppy and soft, or is it, little body fat and a little bit more dense? But really a lot of it is body typing here in pre-game. Once we start getting the routes on there, you get to see how the quarterback throws the ball, how does it come off his hand. A lot of times offenses, they may not throw to the running back very often on film. So it's hard to get a gauge on his catch skills if you have such a limited sample size. So that's what you're looking for here at practice when you're at a game. Things that you may not be able to see on film. I saw the guy in shorts, I'm like, he can't be that hard to find. Same, brother. Same here. I'm usually looking at the sideline more than I'm watching the actual plays. Everything that you're watching on the field, it's stuff that you get on film.
Not only do you see body types and movement, but you see work habits, you see energy, you see camaraderie, you see coachability.
I'll generally be taping the live game, and I'll try to listen to the audio from the TV copy. You get close-ups, you get replays. So it's nice to have that as an addendum to your live exposure, obviously. You just want to be comfortable with knowing, the player and the person. It kind of starts cementing that image in your mind of what type of player they're going to be at our level, and if they're going to fit at our level, and specifically in our locker room.
They've done a lot of work, they're passionate about their players, and they're so critical because they've seen more than anybody else on their players.
From August all the way to the end of November, you're always updating your reports, whether on games and character and medical and mental. to set yourself up for the process of the offseason.
You kind of have a foundation built kind of in the winter, but then when you get into that spring circuit, as I like to call it, with the All-Star games, pro days, and combine, that's when you kind of start tightening some things up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're in that conference.
I'm a group leader. I do the offensive line. I've been doing it for 7 years now. And basically, we are there to help them succeed at this event because, this is their main shot to get in front of all 32 teams. And this is their dream. And we're here to help them in this role.
Hey, how you guys doing?
There's a lot of different things that go into this combine. A lot of stuff is being thrown at them. Meetings, media, interviews, formal, informal, the medical, and then obviously the workouts at the end. So it's a very unique access to it, and it's very informative for us. You get to see little things where, hey, how do they respond? Are they going to be on time? Are they going to be late? How are they with communication? And you get to see the accountability of them. You get to talk to them when, hey, their guard's down a little bit, and you can get to know them as an actual person.
Being a group leader and, having a really important area in the Southeast, he's still fully entrenched, and it's a great experience for him because he gets to be up close with those guys and gets a good feel and gets some great information.
I think the big benefit of it is you get to see how they interact with kids, and I think that's important, other teammates. And a lot of times you go to these schools and you hear information. Sometimes you just want to confirm it, get in front of them, talk one-on-one, and really get to know the person, because I know in our building we want good guys that love football, want to compete, are tough. And some of those kids, when you talk to them, you can tell the passion they have. And I think the big thing for us is you keep building your character on these kids, but we just want to make it best for them to help them throughout the week.
For me, when I was working the combine, used to checking guys at the airport, and I was a big Chris Long fan, and we had the second pick or whatever it was, and he comes in late. So I was back at the hotel, and so the next morning I'm at my post where the players come down the escalator, and he's sitting right there at that thing just waiting to be checked in, and he was like, yeah, I got in last night, just got a hotel and came back over here. And I was like, this guy's trying to do things the right way. So became even more of a fan with that process. Probably the first time I shook Adrian Peterson's hand when he came down that escalator, he almost crushed my hand. So you just have some cool experiences.
In my 7 years doing this, I've had quite a few guys that we've drafted or have had on our team. Frank Ragnow, Jonah Jackson, and whenever I see him up at the facility, Frank always tells me, he's like, yeah, I have your number saved as Group 2 leader, and it's kind of funny, but it's the little things that you get to do in this role that you get a little relationship with them and you hope they succeed as best as they can.
That's when you kind of start putting some furniture in the house, and then you kind of have the complete house by the time you get into meetings.
Once the combine's over, obviously we review the film, and then it goes right into pro days, which is where we go to each school. They have their own little mini combine, I would say, at each school, and you hit all those. It's another opportunity to see the player move in person.
Every time I go to pro days, man, I get this itch, man. I'm like, whew, man, gosh, damn it, I miss it. It's just seeing the guys, just having your whole schedule, having your whole week lined up. I used to like the driving, man. I was at Alabama, and so I was just kind of talking to some of the guys that I'm close with, and it's like, man, I remember back in the day, I was living in Atlanta doing the Southeast, and it's like, you got Alabama, and you got Auburn, you got Troy, and you're just kind of just making that trail, man, and I just loved it all, and man, I miss it.
My favorite thing about being an area scout was no day was ever the same, and you had to really manage your time and set up your schedule and kind of the travel ups and downs. When I think about those days, a lot of good memories.
In like the last 12 months, I've done I think like 25,000 miles or so. Hotel nights, definitely over 100. I mean, you're always gonna work a ton of hours, and that's just kind of how it is, and you know what you're signing up for. But not being constrained to your desk, having some variety, being able to kind of set your own schedule, having some flexibility. Usually in our industry in football, is definitely very welcoming.
When the scouts come back in town off the road from all the pro days that they've been on, the coaches have had time to evaluate the prospects. That's when we have a week long of meetings, and you feel good about it because the scouts have seen it all at that point.
We will come in for meetings one last time, talk about our players, the guys you're convicted on, the guys you're not convicted on. And then once you get up to that draft week, you've done all the prep and work you can do. And you just trust in your evaluation and all the work you've done. And it's go time to go get some players and help build our team to be the best we can be.
We've all put our kind of rock in the wall, and then we make that selection, and we pick a player that we are excited about, that pans out for us. It's really fun. It's really exciting.
It's a great feeling, and not just for me and Dan, but just everybody. That's what makes it all worth it, because everybody has these favorites. And so the number one favorite, I think it was Lance Newmark that was really driving the Kirby Joseph bus. Just seeing him standing in that corner and just nervous before we took him, and then when we got him in, it's a feeling like no other.
When we select a player that we've all kind of contributed to the process, it's a very rewarding experience for everyone involved.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Every year, this is an exciting time because you feel like you're building your team the right way through the draft, and just so much work goes into it to finally have it come together and happen. It's a little bit of a relief too.
It's about raising expectations. The foundation is here, and then you bring in guys that are like-minded and about winning. I think it's hard to fail.
We're not perfect. We still got a lot of work to do. We understand that. We know that. We embrace it.
I'm really excited about where we're at as a team, and I feel like a good offseason, a good draft, a good free agency class could really put us in position to do something special.
Hey, this is a chance to absolutely cement the foundation of this team.
It doesn't matter what the position is. If we can upgrade our team top to bottom, we will do that.
Life is about embracing uncertainty, and that's what the draft is. It's 31 other boards, there's 31 other teams. That's what's exciting.
The Detroit Lions select Penei Sewell.
Wow! Wants to throw it to Sewell. He caught it!
Amon-Ra St. Brown.
St. Brown.
Aiden Hutchinson.
Hutchinson said, I'll take that.
Aiden Hutchinson, that's number 2.
Aleem McNeil.
James Houston. All that rookie does is get sacks.
Kirby Joseph.
Intercepted by the Lions. Malcolm Rodriguez. Got it.
We just got to keep our foot on the gas and stay aggressive.
With the 6th pick, the Detroit Lions select